Okay, I don't know how long this is going to last because a minute ago I got cut off. I barely showed you that Bambi deer right there. This mother get hit by a car, and I wiped the slime from it and tried to save it, but wasn't able to. My name's Kendon Curtis. I like to come on here from time to time and talk about political stuff, although this post will not be political in nature. Uh, we'll just call it semi-political. I've had a concept for quite some time, and I believe it goes back in time all the way to 1938. The reason I say that is because in 1938, when they were doing the big build-up to World War II, they knew they were going to need energy, and one of the contingencies of the energy deal that they made with the oil conglomerates at the time was that the hemp plant would be made illegal. That's where you started seeing the reefer madness films and stuff like that. And what people don't realize about that is the reason they did it. There's uh, there's two plants basically that produce a lot of energy when they grow. One would be the cane sugar plant, and not only does it only produce 10% of what the hemp plant produces, but it is not environmentally friendly because of where it's grown and the runoff that occurs while growing it. Which is to say, some of the stuff you've seen in Florida just in the last year of red tide and what have you could have possibly been linked to the chemicals that are used in the runoff of that particular product, or the growth of that product, the chemicals that are used. We'll just put it that way. Uh, this is a very, very important post, and if you feel that you don't have time for it, then I feel bad because it really is something that everybody in today's world, energy seeking and thinking people need to know. And the reason for that is because carbon is such an issue in today's world. Uh, and I'm going to go into that a little bit, just to get everybody to wrap their heads around what the concept is that I'm referring to. Where do I start? Okay, we all know that if you burn fossil fuel, it creates something called monoxide. Monoxide is a poison, and that poison, quite frankly, this is just one man's opinion, and all of these things need to be tested and tried because it's very, very important that these types of things, that we get to the bottom of them and find out exactly what is going on with them, so to speak. Uh, the the monoxide that's produced when you burn a fossil fuel being poisonous tells a common sense guy like me that the plants that conversion the dioxide to oxygen are not going to convert that dioxide to oxygen if it's monoxide, because monoxide is poisonous. It'd be the same thing as you being, stuffed in a bag and having a bunch of monoxide pumped into you. You're not going to want to breathe it. Same thing with a plant. Plant's a living organism. They're in the same boat, if you will, when it comes to conversion rate of oxygen to dioxide and dioxide to oxygen, which is what we do is we breathe in oxygen and we exhale dioxide. But a lot of the plants breathe in dioxide and they exhale oxygen. And the reason that's important is because the conversion rate, and this again, this is stuff that would have to be studied, and it needs to be studied. The conversion rate of uh, carbon dioxide to oxygen is a very important aspect of what we're talking about. It could possibly be that we've been looking at this whole carbon problem all wrong. And let me explain that. If the carbon that's used, or should I say, expelled from use when oxygen is being burned, along with other chemicals when you're talking about a combustible engine, um, then it comes out monoxide, not dioxide. And uh, what my proposal is, if they had this desalination platforms that were huge, almost city in size, that quite frankly would almost be impossible to capsize especially if they were dome covered. Imagine a popcorn machine cover, the dome on the popcorn machine. Not like that, of course, because it would have to be done in pieces, but imagine that cover over a city-size desalination plant that has pinwheel generators that generate all the electricity that's needed for the desalination process and for the pumps that could pump that clean water, because let's face it, desalination water of oceans, it couldn't get much cleaner, honestly. And imagine that being pumped thousands of miles inland to to farming communities that are farming in desert land. So you're doing several things with this. One is you're creating clean water from the desalination process. Two is you're creating energy that's needed for that from the plant itself, because they have pinwheel generators at the bottom of each one of these. You can make them in such a way, just like we make our oil derricks, where they could be tugboated around in the event of the storms and what have you that could put them in peril. So they could be moved out of the way of the horrible storms that are coming, etc. And think of that plant as being like a big dome-covered plant with a line going straight up the top of it that pivots or swivels at the very top, so that the lines don't get kinked up and what have you, because the swivel that takes place at the top of that allows that line to go in one direction, regardless of how the plant itself spins around, what have you. And the anchoring of that would be kind of like down through the center, and yes, they might spin around and what have you, which really you want it to do that, because you want to take advantage of whatever way the tide is moving in order to use that tide as an energy. We have, as everybody knows, we have wind turbines nowadays. This is something similar to a wind turbine, only it works on the waves in the ocean, everything from rip currents to just ocean tides and what have you as they come in or go out or what have you. So the desalination platforms, what they do is they produce just enough energy to desalinate the water, which is to take the salt out of the water, to send fresh water inland, and the pumps and all being of power that they could send that fresh water thousands of miles inland. That's where you get into being able to actually plant and grow in the desert. So basically what you're talking about is plants, many of them could possibly be produced, that could be moved around in the event that there's a storm, that, a tsunami or whatever that they know is coming, and they could move them around the way they do oil derricks, because people don't know it, but they move oil derricks around to get them out of harm's way when they know there's a horrible storm coming. And they can do the same exact thing to these desalination plants that I'm referring to. This is all in concept. This has never been done. And the reason that I'm willing to share this concept with the world is because it's necessary. I don't, it'd be nice if somebody would say, hey, Kendon E. Curtis was the guy that invented this, and he, uh, he might deserve a little kickback for this concept, that would be nice. But it's really more important to me that um, the kids get to benefit from what it is that I'm referring to. Now, imagine that, land being, imagine that water being sent thousands and thousands of miles inland, so that as it goes inland, it can be used as a clean drinking water for a lot of the areas. Now, you kind of have to look at like Hoover Dam today, okay? How much of that water is needed by, say, Las Vegas? And how much of that water could possibly be maybe better used in different areas of the country where they could use it for planting and what have you. There's another aspect that comes into this. It's something that I don't want to scare people or anything, but years and years ago, the National Geographic did studies on this a long time ago. Basically, the whole breadbasket of America is fed by a big, great, huge underground aquifer. Now, that underground aquifer has been tested over the years because they have ground penetrating radar, and they can tell, how much of the water's been used. Even 10 or 15 years ago, it was down to like 80% of what would be normally there, which is to say it's a huge cavern because it used to be full of water, but now it's depleted quite a bit from the farming that's been taking place. If you fly over the Midwest, you'll see all of those little green circles that you see when you fly over the Midwest. Those are irrigation spots where they pumping the water straight from that aquifer into the farmland, and that's why they look like a big green circle, because the way the irrigation is set up, they have they have a pivot point at the center, and then they have a line that goes out, and that line distributes the water in a big circular area. That's why when you fly over those areas, you see those big green circles. Those green circles are farm products being grown. Now, I'm going to get into something that people are going to have to wrap their heads around this. This isn't it's not rocket science. I mean, it can be done. Desalination plants, pumping water thousands of miles inland, being able to utilize a land that wouldn't normally be able to be utilized for growth, which is to say desert land. Desert land is the last place that you would think you could grow something. However, with this concept that I have, it not only would be a very good place to grow stuff, but it's a good place to grow things that are away from, different areas that where maybe you don't want the whole world out there, rummaging around where it's being grown. Now, if this was done properly, and it was done with kill 8 birds with one stone kind of thing, then what would happen is they could make in-ground homes that are prior to the irrigation, so that those in-ground homes have a valve, if you will, that can cool them off in the desert. And in other words, there's flowing cool water from the ocean coming in, and they could actually use that, like, whether it be through radiators or whatever, but it could be used to cool off the in-ground homes that are there for and I would go further than just the farmers, because it actually would do an enormous benefit to the world overpopulation. I mean, it just incredible the amount of potential that's there, if done properly. In other words, if one is done with the other in mind and in concept, that's the problem. We don't organize things the way we really should. And so now we're going to get into an aspect of this project that's going to maybe turn a few people off, but in the long run, I think a lot of people are going to understand what it is that I'm saying. And that is that there's a magic plant that was made illegal in 1938 by the oil conglomerates. They knew even in 1938 the basic potential as this plant as an energy source. As I said before, the closest bulk producing plant to this plant is the cane sugar plant. And it is not environmentally friendly because it's grown on the coast, and the runoff that takes place creates red tide and that sort of thing. So even the cane sugar plant that produces 1/10 the amount of bulk that this plant produces, it's not an environmentally friendly plant. Now, here's where, some people, I guess a lot of the people that are into drugs are probably going to hate this concept because the hemp that's being grown will not be being grown for the strength of the drug. It'll be being grown for the seed. And as anybody that knows anything about growing of hemp, they know that the sinsemilla, if you will, you might have heard about it in the Narco series, that can't be grown if there's any male plants anywhere near it. So what they do is they go around and they pull those male plants out so that the female plants don't go to seed. Well, what we want is the exact opposite of that. And the reason we want that is because the seed itself, we're talking hemp that would barely get a baby high if it was done the way we're talking about doing it. Because the seed is where the THC which is the psychotropic drug from marijuana, that's where it comes from, is the same chemical that makes the seed actually makes the THC. So when you start talking about, well, we want to grow it on a mass production for seed, well, it ain't much good for getting people high, we'll put it that way. So there's going to be some opposition about that through the people that want to, produce a really strong, potent marijuana to grow or smoke or what have you. But that's not what our purpose is. Our purpose is not to produce a marijuana that's really strong that gets people super high. The purpose is to produce the seed. The seed from a marijuana plant, and it's abundant on a marijuana plant. And it's already been proven that seed could not only be used in every single aspect of our oil that we bring up from the ground. And the problem with what we bring up from the ground is twofold. One, it's monoxide when it burns, and the other is it's not environmentally friendly. That oil, and you can see it even now, our wind turbines have an oil leak, and then the oil seeps into the soil and it just kills the soil. So what we're talking about is a biodegradable, environmentally friendly oil. Now that oil can be used in every single application that crude oil is used today. In other words, it can be used for grease, it can be used for lubrication of an engine, it can be used for, but here's the beauty of it. It can be used to make plastic that not only is biodegradable, but it's environmentally friendly. And it's so environmentally friendly, in fact, that you hear about these big plastic swirls in the ocean. We're dumping 900 tons of plastic into the ocean every year now. Every year, people. Look, all you need is a World Almanac with statistics, and it will tell you these statistics. It tells you the statistics of people that are dying because of the illegal drug trade. It tells you the statistics of just about anything you can imagine. The World Almanac has been around a long time. It's a fantastic, I would say, unshaded or manipulated statistical place to go to. The World Almanac is it. I mean, it's the Mac Daddy of statistics. If you want to find out what the real statistics are of, say, how many girls are coming across the border that die of dehydration, how many girls coming across the border that have to bring a morning after pill with them so that they don't get raped. If they do get raped, they have a pill. How many of those girls, percentage-wise, are inevitably raped? All of these type of statistics are found within the World Almanac. The World Almanac's a great source, is my point. Now, getting back to what my point is, they're not going to like growing it for seed because they know it can cross-pollinate and ruin their sinsemilla. They don't want that. They don't want the strongest marijuana ever grown to be ruined because somebody else farming next door is growing it for the seed, which is the oil, and that oil can be used for everything. But 900 tons of plastic are being dumped into our oceans every year now. We're talking about the difference between a plastic that's toxic, it's been there over 50 years, it breaks down into a little tiny fine particle, almost like a grain of sand or something, and the fish ingest that, only it's really toxic to them, and so a lot of fish end up dying off. What I'm talking about is a biodegradable plastic that, if it breaks down in that fashion and it's in the ocean, the fish could actually be eating it, and it not only would it not kill them, it would make them healthier. That's goes back to some of these old tests that they had on the subject, and it's true that all the animals they've ever tested it on, it made them healthier, every one of them. And so you can also look at that with that guy got up on the wall over there. If he gets into a big field of marijuana, hey, it's a food, he gets healthier. So we have a desalination plant that's created by the energy of the pinwheels that are upon it, and those pinwheels create enough energy to desalinate the ocean water and to pump it thousands of miles inland so that basically useless desert can be used to grow this plant. But here's the beauty, and I'm not even 100% sure about this. This is one of those things that would need to be studied, because if I'm correct, and I believe I am because I'm a common sense kind of guy, I can ace a Mensa test, and I rarely am wrong about these type of things. The fact that it's the fastest bulk producing plant that's ever been produced tells me that it also probably has the fastest conversion rate of dioxide to oxygen, which means that if the plants are growing somewhere near the coal burning type facility that they're burning the bulk, they're getting the seed off the plant, and then they're taking the bulk of that plant and they're chopping it up and burning it in a coal burning facility. That coal burning facility not only produces energy, because it can be producing energy just like they do now, but if they do it in a specific way that I think can be done, they can scrub the smoke that's coming off of it and actually separate the hydrogen from the other byproducts of the production of the plant. So basically what that means is the coal burning facility that grows or that burns this bulk can also produce compressed gas. Now we all know a vehicle can be converted to compressed gas for less than $300. And why they haven't already done that with simply methane is beyond me. Because you can go out into space right now today and you can see where they just burn methane off into the atmosphere. Whether we use it or not, it's ending up in our atmosphere. That goes even with the forest products that are out there they just stack them up in big mounds of after they run them through their tub grinders, they just stack them up in big mounds. Those wood chips, if you will, they in turn produce methane. And that methane goes out into our atmosphere, whether we want to admit it or acknowledge it or what have you. It's a natural, normal process. And that's the whole thing. Is what we're wanting to do is capture that natural, normal process. Photosynthesis, which is solar, would capture in the growing of the plant. And then the bulk that's burned off of that plant is basically capturing that same photosynthesis or solar energy to create the energy that the plant itself creates. And then, and of course, you have the added bonus of compressing the hydrogen that's produced in the coal burning facility for compressed gas for vehicles or what have you. Now, if I went too fast or I've been a little too long, I know the problem is with these type of posts is that people lose interest. I had a guy that did another post that said, man, I got to keep them short because, ADD is real. People can't pay attention long enough to learn anything if you're not really careful about how short short you keep this. But it's important that I get it, beginning to end so that people can understand. This plant produces, and let's count them down. 1, it produces energy. 2, it produces hydrogen for energy. 3, it produces clean water. 4, it can be used for food. 5, it can be used for clothing. 6, it can be used, did we already say clean water? Anyway, end result, there's 7 energy from the ocean. So end result, there's 7 different real important energy sources that can come from this concept that I've just spoken to you about today. Now, I'd like to keep it short there. I'd like to say one thing. 7 is God's biblical number. Just saying. Now, when we can make oil derricks that you can hook to a tugboat and move out of harm's way, well, we can make desalination plants the same way. And if we do it the way I'm talking about making them round with a big, right in the center of it, a big swivel, so that you can detach or attach or detach from the inland lines to send the clean water inland, then you're talking about being able to move them out of a big storms coming and putting them back where they're useful again in that certain place. You're talking about being able to maybe even move them from place to place in case one plant needs work. You can make up for it with another plant because they're interchangeable, they're movable, and um, hey guys, this is a complete and utter Ken Curtis. I can ace a Mensa test, and I come up with some crazy stuff sometimes. And people used to roll their eyes at me 20 years ago when I would say something about, the future of where, nanotechnology coupled with entertainment, coupled with this, coupled with that. Maybe someday they're going to be slicing brains paper thin and actually extracting the human, uh, everything that they remember and everything that they know, and being able to download that into a computer. And then, of course, then Matrix came along, and some of those people that used to roll their eyes at me 30 years ago started going, well, of course, we're not talking about using people with batteries, but at the same time, it kind of opened their eyes up to some of the other possibilities. You can talk to any physicist today, and they'll tell you that there's all of these types of things. My thing is, as we get more and more overpopulated, there's another beautiful reason to use this system that I'm talking about, and that is that we breathe in oxygen and we expel carbon dioxide. Now, the plants that would be grown around uh, and you would want to grow them around the coal burning facility, for the sole purpose of them being able to convert as much of that carbon dioxide to oxygen as possible. You would want that to be part of, your whole objective, is that those plants do that conversion rate right there, the quicker the better, we'll put it that way. All right, so if anything I've said has kind of touched your heart, maybe made you think a little bit, is it possible? Could it be possible? Could it could it be possible that could it be possible that we're not looking at the problem through the proper perspective, which is to say that the problem could actually be a conversion rate rather than what we've considered. We have all this carbon building up. Well, why is it building up? Think of the earth before man, okay? 100% completely covered with old growth forest. And my dad was a geologist, he'll tell you, our earth used to get droughts, and then we would get like a lightning strike, and that would burn for months, if not years on end. And they can find a little teeny layer of that soot that was created from that inside the geological record. So they know this happened. Scientists know that the earth burned for decades at a time. And we're not talking about little pieces of it. Look, we put fires out now because we don't want them to harm our friends, And so what happens is we come along and we put out these forest fires. But imagine a completely covered earth with old growth forests, and it doesn't get put out. Did that carbon hurt? How about volcanic earth? Was that harmful to the planet? You see where I'm going here? The plant that I'm talking about growing, it grows, 15, 20 feet high, and it works in a way to compensate the old growth forest. And granted, it's not old growth, but if I'm correct, and I believe I am, the fact that it is the fastest growing plant there is, and it converts dioxide to oxygen, tells you two things. One is, if that fast growing plant has anything to do with the conversion rate, in other words, it converts more dioxide to oxygen than any plant we have on Earth, then it's definitely the answer to deforestation of the planet. And I honestly believe, because I sometimes get these things in dreams, not like, well, I'm just pondering thoughts all day, and I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I write stuff down. And I'll give you an example of that. We have all these problems with people shooting up schools. Well, I have a concept, and the reason I'm wanting to share this is because I'm not getting any younger, and I hate to see these things happen over and over and over again. It's ridiculous how this stuff keeps going and going and going, and the reason sometimes is because of greed. Because the guy that has the idea that I have, he wants to get paid. He doesn't want to give up the idea without getting paid. And that can be a real problem in society when, honestly, if they wanted to do something to truly correct society's problems, what they would do is they would do it within the universities. They would make it where somebody like me, who's inventive, could go to the university and say, hey, I've got this concept, and yes, this test needs to be done and that test needs to be done, but hey, if all these tests pan out, here we have our answer. And I'm going to bring you back to what I was just referring to. They have gunshot detectors in the really, really dangerous areas of America that are literally set up to only read the register of a gunshot, the audio signature of a gunshot. You can't fool it with popping balloons. You can't fool it with firecrackers. You can't fool it with, just different things like cars backfiring and that sort of thing. It literally reads, because everything comes, I don't know how much you know about science, but everything's in waves. And it literally reads the wave of a gunshot. And it automatically pinpoints that gunshot. They have them on the tops of, okay, consider this a telephone pole. I know I'm primitive. But anyway, they have them on the tops of telephone poles around the most dangerous areas of America now. And what's happening is the gunshot detector tells the police department, hey, there's been a gunshot in this particular spot. And the reason they can pinpoint the spot is because these gunshot detectors triangulate. And oftentimes the police aren't called. So they go out there and they can find the shell casings. Sometimes they find a dead body. Sometimes they find just the evidence that's going to lead them to an arrest on a different date. But they do it because the gunshot detectors that they've set up on these telephone poles. This is my concept. We need those same type of gunshot detectors in our schools. Okay? And what they do is they automatically open up a safe that's in a hidden cabinet inside a teacher's room. Students don't even know it's there. It's safe within the cabinetry, and the teacher has a key around her neck to open up the cabinet. But she can't open up the gun safe unless the gunshot detector has gone off. In other words, it completely and utterly eliminates the issues that parents have with teachers having day-to-day access to guns. What are those issues? A student could steal their gun from them. The teacher that themselves could be a little wackadoo. I'm just playing, but it's true. That's what they're concerned with. And so this completely and utterly eliminates those issues. I've sent this concept to Jim Jordan. Never got a response. Not even one. And so I'm at the point now where to hell with our politicians. They don't seem to care. I'm going straight to you, the people, and I'm wanting you to think about some of these things that I've been saying. See if it isn't something that resonates with you as truth, and maybe we can get together and and solve some of these problems we have. I've been down inside a Nike missile site. When I was in Maine, I took plumbing and heating classes while I was in Maine. People go, "You can ace a Mensa test and you took plumbing and heating?" Well, guess what? Sexton, I'm not sure how it's pronounced. He's one of the greatest physicists that ever was. Guess what he was? A plumber. So hey, gifts, God's gifts, they come to whoever is there to receive them. And I honestly believe in my heart of hearts that not being selfish with it and being open and exposing it is what God intended. He wants us to have a better world. But I've been down inside the Nike missile sites, and the gunshot detectors could be set up the same way. In other words, they could have a police escort on the days of training and maintenance of those weapons. What they do is they have a bypass only in the office that takes 2 officers of the school to put their code in and simultaneously turn a key at the same time. In a Nike missile site, the way it's set up, you couldn't turn just one key. You could even have that guy's information, and it wouldn't do you any good because you have to turn those keys simultaneously. And that's why they were so, that's why they chose that as being the fail-safe of a Nike missile site. And I say, hey, if it's good for a Nike missile site, it's good for the gunshot detectors. So, point being, if a gunshot detector goes off, it sets off a specific alarm. That gunshot detector tells the teacher that's certified and trained, get to my weapons. And what they do is they open up their safe, they put on their clearly marked bulletproof vest that says, emergency responder right on it, and they might even have some flashbangs or some gas, have a gas mask and maybe some gas dispensing containers, different things that might help them to subdue the issue, the problem, which is a student most of the time who's come in to shoot up the school. Although recently in the news there's been these Muslim training camps training little kids, 9-year-old kids, to shoot up schools. So this isn't a far-fetched thing. I mean, they could do some real damage if they're trained properly. And so we need to start addressing that issue. And there it is again. If that was signed into, just stop and think about what I'm saying, people. If that was signed into law, and I had the patent on it, okay, I could be a billionaire. If they decided to put that in every school in America, and I'm the one with the patent on the concept, and all it took was a simple wiring diagram, the gunshot detector goes to the relay switches, goes to the office, it's a bypass, et cetera, et cetera. You either are powered up for the safe to open or you're not. I mean, it's really not that difficult. It's pretty simple stuff. I'm putting it out there because I'm concerned about my children being safe in their school. There is no greed here. And yet, I wouldn't turn it down if somebody was to offer me a finder's fee, if you will, for the fact that I'm the one that came up with the concept. So, and it goes the same with the, desalination plants that can make basically useless farmland farmable. Hey guys, if these things resonate with you, that there's this person over here who's completely unselfish, but he's got a gift, and it's not your average gift. It's just kind of a quirky, weird gift, where you basically, if you give me all the arrows to the X, I'll spot it every time. That's why I've known about the corruption in politics for a long time. I see it. Other people 30 years ago would have looked at me like I had three heads if I talked about the Iran-Contra scandal. Nowadays, they get it. There was drugs being sold and our government was involved. But 30 years ago, they looked at me like I had three heads. And I've been that way my whole life. This isn't about me, though. This is about us. This is about, everybody has a gift. Some people can, I can't sing. I can't strum a guitar. I can't dance on my tippy toes. I'm just being funny now. But I have a gift. I can connect the unconnected, and I always have been able to do that. And it's something that if you stop and think about it, if the world knew about this concept and they could turn desert into farmland, and would carry it that step further where they actually make housing that's in the desert that's air conditioned, right? A turn of a valve makes it air conditioned. Well, why aren't we already doing it? See? If it resonates with you, if you like what you heard, please share it. Please. I'm not just saying, I'm begging. The world needs this. We all need this. We all need to know that our future's secure. And the best way to secure a future is for it to be the land of plenty. And we can do that. We can do it. We can do it. We can do it. We can do it. We all have a little bit we can chip in towards this concept. We all have little ideas and parts of it that I haven't conceived or whatever that you, well, you know what? You could do that too. There's a lot to this stuff that once you get it out there and start doing it, it's exciting. It's, imagine the jobs that are created by it. Imagine the hundreds of years of complete and utter prosperity that it would create. Share it, people, please. I love you. God loves you. Jesus, please let this reach who it needs to reach. Let it fall on the ears of those that are capable of understanding, that are willing to do the work, that are responsible, that aren't the typical old greedy oligarchs who suppressed, certain energy energy things that, because let's face it, they did it at the peril of their own children because they had billions invested when it was unusual to have millions invested. Let's get around that. God, please, everybody pray for it. Let's get around it. Let's not let this be another one of those things where the only people that prosper are those that are willing to sacrifice their own children, because that's what they've done. Amen. Y'all have a good day.